to every single one of you who is here joining us live for another episode of Lead with Intentions, where every single week at 12 p.m., I, your coach, your host, Ambreen, take you on a journey where I am serving you first and foremost and exposing you to individuals who are really living life as a priority with intentions to understand that in this very moment, you are here and giving us the most valuable commodity, which is your time. I am super appreciative of that. Welcome to Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. Sincerest apologies for being a little late today. We had some technical difficulties, but here we are live with you right now. Please remember, throughout this experience, as you're here with us, to download the app on Zingo TV app on your respective stores. iOS, Android, Google Chromecast, any smart TVs 2016 on forward, the full Roku TV lineup, the full Amazon lineup. Anywhere you can think about it, we are available, completely free to download. As you're downloading, do us this amazing favor. Leave us some comments. Let us know what is working out for you and what can we do to improve your whole experience just a little bit more, because that's what we're here for. We are here to make sure that we give you the best of the best. And that's why we're here today with none other than, yeah, is it Yayoi? Yayoi. All right. So this woman has been on my radar for a little bit. Okay. But the great thing is she's finally here. She has arrived here on Lead with Intentions to serve us with her amazing and wonderful knowledge of 20 plus years. She's somebody who is not only here as a TV host of her own, but she's here to add a ton of passion, a ton of mission into life. She is an elite certified neuroencoding specialist alongside with a certified life transformative strategist. And these are not small things. On top of that, she's affiliated with Dr. Amen, one of a brilliant, calm, wonderful man who really is talking a lot about the brain, and she's a trainee with them. She's also a Freedom Point certified practitioner. John Maxwell, big man when it comes to leadership. She's also their coach. She's a senior leader with Tony Robbins. Like, who doesn't know these people, right? If you're all of this, what does all of this mean for you? What this means is, although she's also speaking and having her own things, she's here to pour into us. And what she's going to do is provide knowledge. She's going to give us shortcuts and ways how we can really start to think about our brain and our bellies and how they actually talk more than we can imagine. How we can actually start to realize what we pour in is what we put out. And all of this is just to have a lot healthier way of being with our minds, our bodies, and our souls. So, welcome to the show.
Wow, thank you for that. Wow, introduction. I'm Coach Yayoi and of Brain to Belly, and I am just thrilled to be here today. Um, yes, I've heard a lot about you as well, and heard a lot about your show, and I'm just very honored and excited to be here. Um, yes, I am a neuroencoding specialist with Joseph McClendon. He's my mentor. I've also worked with those other modalities, and well, all of them combined is who I am. And I've been in the wellness industry for over 20 years now,
Mm.
um, and weight loss, weight health. That's been my passion for the longest time. Personal reasons as well. I've released more than 30 pounds over the years, and I was heavy as a kid and a teenager, so you can imagine
Mm.
all the trauma that went with that. And and yes, and so that became my passion, and I've worked in the wellness industry since then. I've noticed so many things, and coaching is something that I'm just very, very passionate about. Yes. And as my mentor says, physician, heal thyself and to lead by
Mm.
example. So everything I work with clients with, everything I do is really based on what I've experienced and what I've come through, because unless I've experienced it, I really can't teach you anything or even preach about anything. So it's
Yeah.
all about
Makes it so
integrity.
much more personal, right? When you're able to go through something.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say repeatedly, in your own words, is you had a challenge and you made that your strength.
Yes.
Now, when did you start to see that happening for yourself?
You know, it started, I mean, I think, gosh, even as a child, I had to do that in order to survive. I'm bicultural, so lived in Japan and the US, and which means that living here in the US, I was one of the few Asian faces in Caucasian school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Full of Caucasian people, and so I had to adapt. And you have to adapt, and you have to learn how to maneuver yourself and how to use the pain points that you've had into advantages and to go on, yeah, doing what you can. And I think a lot came from my mom as well. She's taught me always to think positively, to look at the better things, that I can look at the positive aspects of things. And that's really helped me a lot in surviving.
Mm.
Of course, I was teased because of the way I looked. And of course, that's why I ate a lot. Things like that, yeah.
And
So
when did you start to kind of notice there was an unhealthy relationship with you and food? And the reason why I'm asking this is because not only to single you out, but to understand that there's so many people who are watching here right now who may themselves not even recognize that there is something unhealthy, or even for somebody in their families and their loved ones, that what are the subtle ways that you started to notice that something's got to shift?
well, wow, I think it's because I was teased a lot, for being heavy as a kid. It wasn't so bad until really turned bad when I went back to Japan. My family, we moved back to Japan when I was about 12, and up until then, we were here in the US. I think from like 2 to 2.5, 3 to about 12, I was here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was okay, because I was adjusting to life here, and I was still teased, but it wasn't so bad. And then, but I did always use food as a way to cope, as a coping mechanism.
Mm.
And that was because when I was a baby, real baby, when I was first born, my mom would be so busy helping my dad with his business, and also so that she would be like, I would be crying, and she would say to the nanny or the housekeeper, "Oh, just feed her," right? To keep
Mm.
quiet. And I don't blame her for any of that at all. But, and I think that got me into the thinking that, oh, food is comfort. So I
Mm.
used that a lot, even as growing up as a kid here in the US. But when I moved back to Japan, I had such culture shock because all I knew was life here in the US. And, girls are treated very differently in Japan. I was a tomboy here in the US. I would be in my jeans and t-shirts, and I would be climbing trees, playing baseball with the boys, being in my superhero clubs and all this. And in Japan, girls are supposed to be girls. Or
Mm-hmm.
that's what it was like when I went to a Japanese, elementary school, and all the girls are wearing skirts, and I'm in my jeans, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, something's not right." So, of course, I start eating because I'm not able to adapt, and people are like, "Oh, she's weird, she's the girl, the American girl," and
Mm-hmm.
that. And of course you get singled out, and then of course my Japan, I could speak it and understand it, but I wasn't very good at writing and reading it. So people always the classmates tease me about that and things of that nature. So it got to be very oh gosh, it was very difficult to cope. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when food really became my friend. Yeah, it became such a friend, and that's when I started realizing things are wrong, and then I started gaining a lot of weight, and that's when the realization that I really have to change started happening. And that was when I started, yeah, my journey into diets and learning about all these different diets. Well, and then I went to then I graduated grade school in Japan, and then I went to all girls Catholic high school.
Okay.
No, junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all girls. Of course, girls can be very mean.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Catholic school. So, there were different things that were going on. And I think that really made me realize like I had to change.
And now, help us understand this. So, food is something that's comfortable. And by the way, I can feel all of your emotions, and I can only imagine how tough it is, you know, to go through a culture shock. I went through a similar one when I came to the US when I was 10. And everything, you're like, what is this place? Some simple things like the pencils are different. You
Yes.
people say, oh, culture shock. Okay, like what's the big deal? Everybody wears pants shirts. And you're like, no, 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 no. Like it's everything. The earrings, the way you put the hair, like the colors that people wear. And I can relate to because I was also a tomboy.
Yeah.
Some people still say I still am a tomboy, which I am like, yeah, holding it down, just be authentic. Help people kind of like serve them in this moment, Yayoi, and let them know if you're somebody who's going through a difficult time, especially when it comes to relationship with food, because that's something that we all need,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What is that one thing that they can do to protect themselves or from the turmoil of making it into discomfort comfort?
Yeah. I would say, well, first become aware that there is a situation going on, that you're relying, that food has become a friend when it should be a neutral thing, right? It shouldn't be a friend or a foe. It should be something neutral. It should be a nutrient more than anything. It should nourish you more than anything. And I think that awareness is one thing. And another thing is talk to someone, communicate with someone what's going on with you, what the feelings are. If it can't be your mother, it could be a sibling, or even someone, a classmate. I know I confided in a classmate, and she really helped me out. Um, you know, just to just the friendship helped me, as well as being able to express my feelings. And she would like tell me, okay, what can we do besides eating that could give you more comfort? And that was very, very helpful. So seek out people that will help you, but also become aware. And if you can't find anyone, journal. Journaling is something I highly recommend.
Mm.
Even if you can't write it, you know, type it into your phone, even video, voice audios, do audio recordings, video recordings, just anything to kind of like let it out of you, because it's all that tension and all those emotions that are stacking up inside of you that need to be released instead of being shut out with food.
Yeah. I mean,
So, yeah,
the power of journaling, I think, is one of the number one predictors of how fast we as humans grow. It's just this portion of reflecting, which
yeah,
sadly, I would say to many people, is kind of leaving our culture. Back in the day, you had to walk
yes.
miles on end. And guess what you were doing? You were processing, right? Like
Oh, yeah,
you didn't need to have a phone to audio record. Your brain was doing things. You were
yes,
connecting dots. You were shifting and becoming
yes,
more aware.
yes,
And now it's like we have to force time to do those things,
yeah.
right? Let us know. I know you're kind of somebody that already mentioned so much of this, but I would love to understand, what does it mean for you to live an intentional life?
Wow. To me, it's integrity. It's to be honest with myself and to live with who I am, my true self. It's
Mm,
only in recent years that I feel so comfortable with who I am, and I love who I am. Um, and it's hard, like at first, like ask me 5 years ago, did I love myself? I'd say,
mm,
yeah, probably, but now I could say, yeah, I love myself and I love who I've become. And who I'm becoming as well. And it's really to live as my true self. So the tomboy that I am, I love my superheroes. That I'm even telling in this, and I love my Marvel. I love my DCs. I love my sci-fi things. I'm a Star Trek, Star Wars fan, a Doctor Who fan, and all of those. And I go to Comic Con New
Yeah,
York Comic Con
good
every
for
year.
her. Okay, yeah.
Last year I was Barbie, um, but those are parts of me, and I'm not ashamed of them anymore. I used to hide things like that,
Mhm.
or I would hide my interests in different things. Like I was different things, and I just thought that it was not right. Like especially when I lived in Japan, I felt like I had to conform into that Japanese model of a woman,
Mhm.
which is so not me. Um, I like to talk, I'm loud, I'm all about freedom and how men and women should be treated equally.
Mhm.
And I hate seeing when, women are oppressed anywhere, even here in the US. I mean, it just gets me so angry. So, and I like to voice what I feel. And I had to shut all of that down. And when I lived in Japan, and now I am living the life that I want to. So I'm living with intention now. I'm living being true to myself. And that's such a happy feeling.
Mm. I just, recently heard this really beautiful way of kind of speaking through things where they're like, the the different levels, of like you're just kind of like, yeah, you know what, I'm happy, and then I'm joyful, and then I'm blissful. All those are kind of the same thing, but they're just elevated emotions. And I really think when we tap into what it means to be authentically us, because for me, that's the biggest thing I work with people. I was like, authenticity, like, who is your family, who are you, who are you as a mom, as a dad, as a sister, a brother, like all these emotions and all these different roles that we play. I feel like we hide and tuck away things
Yeah.
that are not approved, right? Like I think about my own life, and it is true. The day that I knew that my marriage was coming to an end, most people would be like, my God, I'm sure you were shattered. I was like, no, I was liberated. Like, I could finally just, if I wanted to laugh loud, I could. If I wanted to just dance, I could. If I wanted to sit there and do nothing, I could. If I wanted to give my kids high fives without a reason, I could. All of these simple things that we kind of overtake. But I really want to dive into one specific place that you went. And I think it's important for our audience members, who I'm so grateful for that are still here listening, is you said, I am somebody who wants to see equality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Equality in the way that men are treated, women are treated. If you want to be a tomboy, great, be a tomboy. If you want to be a tom girl, be a tom girl. If whatever you want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now the way I look at it with my daughter, because she's also a tomboy, and I'm like, you know what? She's just a girl. Why am I calling her tomboy and labeling her,
That's
saying this
true.
type of girl is not okay?
Yeah.
However, when you were kind of, you come to these scenarios in your life and you see things where there's injustice,
Yeah.
and you said, then I get really angry.
Yeah.
Now, people getting angry on other things, right? So, all of you that are listening, there are other things that make us angry. How do you deal with that anger in that moment, or even in the long run, to kind of make it something where it's reflecting your integrous self?
Yeah, I'm not usually an angry person. So if I do get angry, what I try to do is use that anger to fuel something moving forward. So if it's about talking about about equality, or even, I don't, this is like a big can of worms, but the you know, LGBT
Yeah, community.
community, that community, equality for them, equality for people with autism, with disabilities, all of that. Because at the end of the day, it's to me, this body is just a shell or a vehicle that we're in. And this is just my philosophy, but I believe that the soul is what matters the most. And yeah, and this is the vehicle that we're in this lifetime or right now. And so we have to take care of the vehicle like the car, like a car. And the soul has many genders. It could be whatever. And you can't really say that one's a woman, one's a male. It's a combination of the feminine and masculine energies. So when I see people treated poorly because, let's say, somebody's transgender, or somebody's just treated poorly because they're gay, it gets me so angry. It's like, who are you to say this is wrong? And they go, oh, well, the scripture says this and this and this. And I'm like, no, the scripture says to love each other.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say gender or this or that. It says each other. We are humans. We are souls. And each soul needs to be treated equally and with respect. So that's just me. And I just went all over because of that.
I
But
love it. You're pouring all of it in. I'm like, okay, now I can totally see myself sitting, having you at my house, making some food for you, and just chatting for hours.
oh,
Like,
yeah, I could do that.
um,
Totally.
and what you said, and I think that's so profound because many of us who are living day to day,
Yeah.
who are just like so bombarded with the challenges of life and really not
Yes.
even understanding that we're living, you know,
Yes.
most of us are just breathing and not even consciously.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like
We're
just
just
going
going.
about the day, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's this essence of equality at such a different level, right? Because now you're talking about the soul, and
Yeah.
that's the depth of who we as humans are, right? And like you said, it's just a vessel, it's just a vehicle that this body's being hosted. Now, how what are some things that we as human beings are doing where we're damaging and not being kind and loving to our bodies?
There are lots. I mean, first of all, it's not loving yourself, punishing yourself. I've been guilty of that, and sometimes I do slip up, and I catch myself, and I'm like, whoops, I'm doing it again. Because how many years have I lived like that? Telling myself I'm no good.
Mm.
I shouldn't be speaking up. All of those things, those putting on those masks, right? And we've been like conditioned to do that in society. And after I take those off, you take it off slowly. And it's also finding that group of people. I think, Tony Robbins says this, everyone says this, but find your five, your family, that's your
Mm-hmm.
tribe, your five
Yeah.
people that are going to be a reflection. You're going to be a reflection of them, and they're going to be a reflection of you. So you want to be the best self if someone's going to use you as a model. And of course, you want to model, emulate people that are that have integrity, that meet your ideals, and to surround yourself with that. And even if you can't do it physically, now with the internet, you can watch YouTube videos of the people that you admire, listen to them on podcasts, train your brain and put these positive thoughts and concepts into your brain so that you learn them and you can live it. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy, but just becoming aware and say, oh, I kind of like what that person says. Maybe I should listen to it a little bit more. Listen to it while you're driving. If you're alone in the car, who cares what you're listening to? Nobody's going to
Mm-hmm.
care what you listen to. So listen to what's going to matter to you, what's going to help you to love yourself, because loving yourself is at the core of everything. And we've been given this life. And hey, we may not like the vehicle we're in, but we could change it the best we can. And some things can't be changed,
Mm-hmm.
and um, if you can't change it, then what's the blessing? What are the blessings in within that? What are the positives with that? You have to always try to look at what is the positive, what works, and things like that. So um, I think it's really about seeing, being aware, seeing what the positives are, catching those positive or those golden nuggets and taking them in and trying to incorporate them into your life, because life is such a precious thing and we take it for granted. We really do. I mean, you know, we're talking. I'm originally from Japan, and they just had this big earthquake there, the
Mhm.
7.1 in the southern part of Japan, and everyone's worried in Japan that there's going to be the big ones going to hit soon. Could hit soon? Yes, it could, and who knows what's going to happen. But then on the other hand, I live in New York City. Who knows when I'm going to get run over by a cab or a bicycle or whatever. Anything could happen at any time. And you just have to, make choices so that, yeah, there are lots of things I still want to do. I still want to live to over 100. That's one of my goals.
Oh, girl, you are talking me. Okay, a century plus. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, hell yeah. Uh, Yeah, because I want to go to space too. I want to actually go to space,
Yes.
not just go to the outer, sphere. I want to go to space and see what
Mhm.
it's like. There's so many things I want to do, experience all these different countries, cultures, all that. I want to be this spunky old centurion, right?
You know.
Yeah, we could do it together,
Do it all.
yeah. So that's who I am, and I just, there's so much I want to experience. So that means I have to take care of this, but also to embrace what's here. And if it's not working, then throw it out. It doesn't belong. Take it out of your life if you can, and if you can't, then try to adapt it so that it can work for you, because we have the power to change things into what's going to work for us, because
Mhm.
everything is a matter of perspective. um you know and you can try to see what the beauty in something is. Some things can be really, really horrible and ugly, but there's always something that, I don't know if you believe in God or the higher power, that there's a lesson in there for us. There's something that we're supposed to be learning. And I mean, yeah, my divorce was painful. I've had instances where things were really painful, and, I didn't like myself, and I was doing slow, I was, I hate to say this, but, I was overeating because I didn't want to feel
Mhm.
a lot of those emotions. And I used to be a smoker, and that was like a slow way for me to deny myself the life that I really want, right?
Mhm.
Because I knew it wasn't good for me, but I'm doing it because I'm thinking, well, okay, Well, at one point in my life, I thought it was cool to do it, but that was dumb of me. But
That's how
that
you
was
started off. Okay.
that's when you're a teen and all that. So, but yeah, it's like, but then you start doing it, and you're like, why am I doing this? And it's like, well, I'm not worthy. And that was
Mm.
why I was doing stuff like that. Or I would do things that are very risky because I felt like, well, it wasn't really worth, you know, you're testing yourself and you're like, well, I'm not really worth it. I'm not worthy of this or that. And and then you start realizing, wait a minute, what am I doing? And then both my parents are gone now, but when I think about them, I think about the life that they gave me.
Mhm.
This is a life that they granted me, right? I didn't have to have this life. And a lot of the experiences, some of them were painful, but a lot of them were really good too. Like
Yeah.
the fact that I am bicultural, that I am bilingual. That's like something, it's not something that a lot of people have. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of people that are bilingual and bicultural, but that's an experience that I had. And from there, I learned so much about myself.
Mm.
And I could see things from different perspectives because of that. Um, I was recently talking to my younger sister, and we were talking about art because I love art. That's
Mm-hmm.
one thing I love. And recently went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art because that's my favorite museum actually. And and I went there for the Costume Institute because they were doing an exhibit called Sleeping Beauties about, um, you know, clothing and all this. And it was really a beautiful exhibit, and I really enjoyed it. And and then after the exhibit, it was only for members only that night, so they kept some of the galleries open. So I was able to stroll around and see some things. And I love Van Gogh,
Mm.
and I love Monet as well. And there were a couple of Monets and there were Van Goghs. And there's something about Van Gogh that's so passionate. You could see the passion. I mean, literally in the oils, right? Because when you look at his paintings, you could see the the ups and downs, the and all the texture in it, and you could feel his passion in that texture. And I was telling my sister about it, and I was like, I never would have known Van Gogh or even liked him if my parents hadn't taken us to a
Mm.
Van Gogh exhibit when we were like 5 or 6. They dragged us to it. And I still remember my mom telling me about Van Gogh's story and how
Mm.
he he lost his mind and he cut his ear off and all this and that. And then she was showing me the sunflowers and all the texture, and she explained all that to me. And I was telling my sister I never would have known about that or even appreciated had my parents not taken me to this show. And at the
Mm.
time I was like, why am I here? It's boring, blah blah blah. Of course, as a kid you think that, right? Until my mom opened my eyes to all of that. And I think it's going back to, taking things for granted. We forget that, we learn so much from our parents. We learn so much from our surroundings. And it's what, focus on. It's what you focus on. And my mentor says, where you focus is where the energy flows. So,
Mm.
I try, and I think it's consciously focusing on the positive, what's going to serve you.
Yeah, indeed. I think gratitude. I mentor a ton of kids, and we've kind of built out this whole like I love creating in that way, like creating communities. Talking about your five tribesmen or
Yes.
tribeswomen or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. And so it's about 50 kids that are already in this, and every year we have to get together different timings depending on how where they are, because they're dependent on their parents. They just can't show up, right? So, and we all have like custom attires that we wear, and
Oh,
it's
cool.
it's like a whole thing. And in that, you start to see how that community is impacting each other, because
Yes.
the 21-year-old is teaching the 5-year-old something that you can't imagine. And this last time that we were all together, literally, my two nephews, one is lying down underneath this, it was like a movie scene, underneath this beautiful tree in shade. And the youngest one, who's 3, is on him, and all he's doing is slobbering and punching, and he's like throwing him up. And in that moment, there's so much that they're both learning,
Yes.
which will come back in their life because they probably want to make somebody else feel in that way. So
Yeah.
it is true. Life is just like brick by brick. There's so much that we can, that we can learn. But in hindsight, we're not grateful, for those moments. And gratitude, from what I know and research, is like the number one predictor of joy is gratitude.
Yes.
In this very moment, sitting in two different spaces, all across, the US, and talking so comfortably, like we can literally have some tea together, it's such a rare thing. The being able to smile and feel emotions,
Yes.
like there's so much that we overlook in life.
Yes.
However, gratitude, I think, is something that could really add so much power, so much optimism, so much meaning into our lives.
Hmm.
I want to actually ask you, we've talked a lot about the upside, and I've
Yes.
heard a little bit about your mom and your sister, but I haven't heard as much about your dad. Where
Ah,
do you think, what's the influence that your father has had, or what are some lessons that he's taught you that has made you who you are today, Yayoi?
wow. He's taught me a lot. I mean, he was. gosh, he was such an intellect, right? And he was such an intelligent man. Uh, he learned English in Japan when before the war, before World War One. So he learned it from the British. So he had a British accent. He's a Japanese guy with a British accent, you know, English, right? And he speaks with a British accent. So he sounds all the sophisticated and whatnot, right? And here's this daughter of his who's like totally American, right? So it was so funny. Like, he worked for a British company for a while. So we would have guests over and, his clients and all this. And they're all from the UK, and he goes, "Oh, I want to introduce my daughters to you." So,
Mhm.
my sister and I would come out and we'd say, "Oh, hello," and blah, blah, blah. And all the time, we always get the comment, "Wow, that's such an American accent." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, because I mean, we both we don't know what a British accent is except for what my dad spoke. And when we meet people from the UK, right? That's it. Or we'll watch a movie British movie or whatever. And I remember that all the time. They go, "Oh, you're so American."
Yeah,
And I'm
almost
like,
like it's a bad thing, right? You're like, what are you doing? You're like, your father is here talking in this beautiful way, and
yeah,
then you're talking like this. And
yeah. I'm
you're just
like,
like,
yeah, whatever,
oh
And I'm like, they're like, "Oh my God." And, but, it's like, and he'll just laugh it off, my dad. And I just love that he had this God, he was born in 1918, so he was like old,
my God.
but he was very progressive in his thinking. I mean, the fact that he was one of the first people in Japan to come to the US, study in the US.
Mm.
um he was one of the, I don't know, the country had scholarships and they sent people over to the US, and he was one of the
Yes.
first ones. um and he was open to so many different things. He accepted most all cultures. He was very accepting and open.
Mm-hmm.
And both my mom and my dad, but both of them. And he taught me that. And he taught me to also think, right? um and he grew up very poor. He grew up in a very poor family. His mother was a single mom raising four kids, back in the day. So you could just imagine. And he
Mm-hmm.
was the eldest of the four. So, they had a hard life. And so I did learn how to be resilient. And sometimes I'm a little too frugal because of his things. But that's okay, because it makes me realize that there are different things in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's just taught me to cherish things too. And he loved my mom with all his heart, and that was like such a beautiful thing. um and seeing that was really a beautiful thing. I didn't appreciate it as much when until recently, to be honest with you. you
Oh.
know yeah, I mean, I realized it when he was alive. He would always say, "Oh, anything mom does is fine, and whatever she cooks for me is fine." And he'll be like, "I'll eat anything she does." And I remember when my mom fell ill, he was torn. He was really, really torn. And but I think it's in retrospect, over the years I've been thinking about it, and it's just been really beautiful to see the relationship that my mom and my dad had, from different eyes, from an older me looking back
Mm-hmm.
on it as well. And also the fact that he was a rebel in his own time, because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know, when I think about it, coming here to the US when he was that was, you they didn't even have planes back then. He had to take a ship to San Francisco, and then from there he had to take a train cross country to New York.
Wow.
Yeah, so, things like that. I'm like, you have to have courage, and you have to be,
Yeah.
curious, have that curiosity, and a person that has growth in them in order to do something like that.
Yeah.
And so I really respect him for those things, and just the fact that he was an innovator in his own way, a
Mm-hmm.
rebel. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
was gonna say believer and innovator because he believed that he could do it all.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, there was no Google Maps saying, okay, take this train and then take this bus and then literally you're just like, no, I'm just gonna go at the wit of like my whatever my heart says. I'm just gonna ask people and do the difficult things. I love what I'm hearing about your father because I do see your reflection, you know, both of their reflection in you. And you know, I've only kind of spoken to you for 40 minutes here. And it is true that, I often, when I'm working with couples, and it's one of my beautiful, most wonderful things that I love to do is take couples on a journey first alone for 6 weeks and then unite them, which I call companionship, right?
Yeah.
And I often remind them that the most beautiful gift that you can give your children is a healthy relationship between the both of you.
Yes, yes.
And I love how you said, now that I reflect back on so many things, my dad, he just cherished my mom so much and vice versa, because that relationship couldn't have lasted as long as it did in the harmony that it did without it being a two-way.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
how as kids we start to aspire and realize what are those the things that really are the strains in a relationship. Now let me ask you this question: what is one challenge that right now you're facing in your own relationships?
Hmm. In my own relationships, I would say is really to speak up more. Sometimes, I think it's a habit from being who I was in the past as
Mhm.
well, and that I don't want to rock the boat, or, and also being Japanese, I think that's another thing, and being a woman. Because as a woman, you're told not to rock the boat. And
Mhm.
also Japanese, you're told not to rock the boat, especially in that society. So I think that's a challenge, is to speak up when I need to speak up. I mean, I've gotten better over the years, and you know, but still, I still need work on that. I still need to be able to speak up, speak my truth, and, let myself not take a back seat.
Mhm.
Sometimes I kind of dim my own light
Yeah.
because, you know, I want to honor somebody else, but I'm not really honoring them by doing that.
Yeah.
And, it's only in the last several years that I've started to really see that. And sometimes I just fall into that pattern with certain people. So I'm becoming more aware of that and taking more assertive action.
Okay. So what if I were to tell you that from here on out, the strongest, most confident, most courageous, most integrous Yayoi stands next to you in this next time that this happens?
Yes.
What are you going to do differently to make sure you can kind of start putting an end to the patterns?
Well, just speaking it out like this
Okay.
is my accountability. And also because I've lost, opportunities. I know that I've lost opportunities
Mhm.
because I wasn't shining as best I could. So it's really when I catch myself to be aware and to take action, to
Yeah.
say, no, I'm just going to be strong Yayoi, do my power pose or my Wonder Woman pose or whatever.
Mhm.
And, you know, be the strong person that I am. And I got to show you my Wonder Woman.
Oh, I love it. My kiddos have those too.
She's on my desk.
What a great reminder. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, let us know, how do people get in touch with you?
Yes, they can. Well, they can go to my Facebook group called Brain to Belly. They can find me on Brain to Belly there. They can find me also on braintobelly.com, braintobellycoaching.com, sorry. And I'm on LinkedIn as my name, Yayoi Komiyama. So, and you can Google me. And if you Google Spanglish World Network, you'll find me in Brain to Belly. So,
The theme is consistent, folks. If there's brain and belly together, Yayoi is there.
and you'll see this face, you'll see this mug.
You're like, hey, it follows me everywhere. I go brain to belly. Oh, I love it. Okay. So on this show, I am building our tradition. It's called the intentional wrap up, and we
Okay.
do rapid fire questions. And the
Okay.
intention is nobody gets a sneak peek of these ones. Um, it is, questions that you can answer in one word or one
Okay.
sentence, and whatever comes to mind. Kind of just
Okay.
seeing where this mind takes us. Okay.
Okay.
No judgments as always. All right, ready?
Yep.
Okay. What do you want to leave behind for the world?
Love.
How will you know you've led an intentional life?
Oh, and I could smile on my deathbed.
At 100 plus years old, remember?
Oh, 100 plus, definitely. Are you kidding? Definitely 110 for sure.
There you go. If you could create one law that everybody had to follow, what would that law be?
Be kind to each other.
Mm. What is the one lesson of the many that you've learned in your life that has made you who you are today?
Walk in the other person's shoe.
Mm. Okay. I am going to come back to that. What is the key to a healthy relationship?
Communication.
Okay. You actually get that 7 out of 10 times. Now, help me understand this concept of empathy that we haven't really touched upon, throughout this conversation.
Yeah.
What do you think about empathy is the key that has really made you evolve into the person you are today?
It's everything. I mean, without empathy, I wouldn't be who I am. Um, Interestingly, I went to Dr. Amen's clinic and I had my SPEC
Yeah, brain
scan done.
scan.
Yeah. And the part of my brain that controls empathy, that was all lit up. It was right here. And it was like, la, 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 la. It was like all lit up. And I remember when I was talking to their, technical person or their therapist, they said, "Oh, you're in the perfect profession for your brain because it's all the empathy section is all lit up."
Mm,
And if I didn't have empathy, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't have the compassion and the love and even the patience to do some of the things I do, and the patience to help some people that, are difficult. There are those mismatches that are going to be really difficult. And sometimes, you want to give up, but
mhm.
sometimes I'll hang in there. So
Yeah.
that's one of the empathy things. And empathy is just, it's something that we as human beings need to have for other people to also have respect. With respect, it helps others to grow so much, and by others growing, you grow. So it's a win-win for both. And the growth has to also come from being honest with each other,
Hmm.
and that whole integrity bit. And you can lie to yourself all you want, but that you're not going to be who you are if you lie to yourself. So
Yeah, I would say, this ability for us human beings to relate to each other, even though we may not have gone through the same thing, but we felt the same emotions. Like when you were talking about your childhood and kind of moving back to Japan and what that felt, you're miles away from me, and I could feel it. So this essence of saying I don't have to know exactly what you are going through. I just know that I felt being mistreated.
yeah,
I felt disrespected. I felt the people are thinking I'm lying, whatever that underlying theme is. However, you are right to say that empathy is that glue that kind of bonds all of us,
yeah,
and really allows us to be more human. I think more than anything to be like, yep, I got you, you got me, different bodies, kind of the same, source.
yeah.
And yeah.
I mean, I know I sound like Pollyanna or I sound like the Star Trek, universe or whatever, but I really wish that we could just live in a society where people can love each other for who
Mhm.
they are and not accuse people of being different or just isolate them because they're different or not accept them because they're different, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, if you take out the outsides, we're all the same inside, really.
Yes.
And you know and differences, yeah, but you may, so, agree to disagree, right? And
Yes.
find a common ground because you want that love.
Yeah. Well, for all of you who have tuned in this far, that is going to be a wrap for our episode today. Yayoi Komiyama. And this is why I told you from the top of the hour, we're in for a treat. Authentic, raw, her boldest, strongest self, did not shy away from any of my tough questions, actually, kept on going and gave us so much insight into her own life, into her own upbringing. And for all of you who are watching, I would love for you to reach out to her, let her know what resonated, what insights you took, how she impacted you. And if you want to go ahead and drop me, something across social media, it's Coach Ambereen. Go ahead and do so. Thank you so very much for being on the show.
Thank
And
you.
for all of you who are here, this show can be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and the programmings. As we close, my prayer is that this show will embark us on a transformative path to be in gratitude for all the blessings that we have, accept the unfoldings of life, and commit to values and dreams which will allow us to tap into our own greatness. As I have tawakkul, which is faith in all of us and our greatness. When we unleash our authenticity, we start to live intentionally. Remember, there's only one of you, one life designed by excellence. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it. Most importantly, live into it with intentional to better serve you. Thank you so very much, folks, and yayoi.
Thank you.